So help us understand the problem. What exactly seems to be the impediment when it comes to the provision of antiretroviral drugs and therapeutic care for those living with HIV and AIDS?
The challenge has been mainly one that I find difficult to accept because we get these drugs as donation from the Global Fund. And by the time before they arrive in Ghana, we already know, we have the documentation as to the batch numbers, the quantities, the freight information, everything, and the time of arrival. So in my view, it's very simple to make the necessary arrangement well in advance to have these commodities cleared on time. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen that way. Previously, we had a challenge of task clearance, and the process of obtaining task clearance from GRA or Ministry of Health was quite, difficult. But now the situation has changed. The Parliament has waived off 6 taxes, and so the Ministry of Health only has to the clearing agent, which is the Supply Commission, has to input the data from the supplier, which comes ahead of the shipment. And so once they do the input in the system, the GRA system, somebody at GRA or finance will check all the boxes to see that yes, batch number is correct, the quantities are okay, arrival date, all that. And once the information is confirmed, yes, it's approved, and then the clearance can take place. But it looks very simple, but in practice it becomes too complicated, which is that is why I find it difficult to understand. But of course, from what I understand from the ministry, is mainly being an issue of funding. You need the money to pay the third-party charges at the port, which are not necessarily taxes. And when you don't have that money, then you miss the grace period also, and then the commodities go into demurrage, and then you have to pay demurrage penalty, which adds to the bill. And if you don't have the money to to pay the demurrage and the other clearing clearing charges, then the commodities remain at the port.
Yeah. So there are funding challenges. If it's a money thing, then it's a funding challenge. So talk us through it. I mean, what's the situation with funding for the Ghana AIDS Commission?
Right. I will rather talk about the situation of the funding for the AIDS response. The AIDS response from the beginning had been dependent on donor funding. In fact, at the beginning in the 90s, it was almost 100% paid by donors. And then from 2002, President Kufuor, the government, had to make a contribution. So it borrowed about $25 million from the World Bank in the first instance, and later another $25 million. And that covered about 10 years. We had a lot of money, some from DFID. DFID then was the largest contributor to the AIDS program in the country. Danida, European Union. So money was coming from everywhere. So we had money to do all the things we needed to do. But the situation has changed significantly. Donor funding kept reducing, from about 95 to 100%. Currently, it's about 33%. And the agreement at the global level is that countries should pay 60% of the cost of AIDS program.
Right.
And many countries are doing that. We have South Africa is paying about 70%. Namibia about 60%. Kenya is doing about the same. Zimbabwe, they have introduced, income tax, so they use 5% of the income tax, for HIV programs. So, and of course, they also have a lot of money because the Eastern and Southern African countries that were initially highly impacted by HIV was seen as the center of the epicenter, and therefore donors, categorized those countries and gave them more resources. So PEPFAR, besides Global Fund, the other donor is PEPFAR. That is the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. That is the U.S. government's program. And is the largest contributor to the AIDS program, the whole world. And they give huge sums of money in addition to what Global Fund gives to these Southern and Eastern African countries.
Right.
So Zimbabwe, for example, gets about 400 million for 3 years from Global Fund. They get about similar amount from PEPFAR.
Okay.
And so this has continued for 20 years or more. So you can see the difference in terms of the level of achievement of the targets compared to non-PEPFAR countries like Ghana and some West and Central African countries.
Okay.
And so the situation is that we need that 60%. But unfortunately for us, ours is 67% because we have only 33% of the money required for the AIDS program.
Right.
And because of the challenges of funding, government saw the need to establish the AIDS fund. So in 2016, a law was passed, the AIDS fund was established, and the fund has to be resourced. But unfortunately, it hasn't been resourced yet.
There's been no money in the fund?
No, not yet. And so all the challenges, if we had the fund well resourced, then we would not be talking about funding for clearing HIV commodities at the port.
No, let me just understand something, Doc, before you continue. So we established the fund in 2016.
Yeah.
7 years after the establishment, no money in the fund.
Yes.
And what do they say? I mean, what's the reason for not having money in this fund?
We have put in the necessary process because the commission is responsible for that. And we've done everything we can to get the fund resourced. And we are hoping that before the end of this year, that process will be concluded. But until that happens, I think there is the need to prioritize HIV,
Sure.
even in the Ministry of Health, because the Ministry of Health uses its share of the NHIS proceeds to cover some health activities, and HIV is supposed to be one of them. And so the prioritization for me is the most important thing here. If we know that the persons living with HIV depend on antiretroviral medicines for their sustenance. Without it, they are going to die. It's like taking a person in intensive care from life support or removing the oxygen. That's exactly the illustration I can give to the situation of the antiretroviral medicines and persons living with HIV. Without it, they are going to have, escalation in the viral load, and then having disease progression and eventually dying of AIDS. And at this day and age, we should not come to that point. And so, yes, the ministry, Ghana Health Service, they are putting in the necessary efforts to get the drugs out of the port. In my view, it shouldn't have happened in the first place, and it is something that should not happen again, because it's not the first time, it keeps recurring, and it has to stop. Because we are putting people's lives at risk.
Talking about it having to stop, and you say this is not the first time. From where you sit, based on the fact that we have to contribute 67%, based on the fact that even the AIDS fund is not, there are no funds in it up to today, do you see commitment towards the sustainability of HIV treatment in this country?
Yes, I see commitment on the part of our donors. They've been very magnanimous when it comes to the support to the country. Although we are not getting as much as we used to, but for example, government is supposed to pay the counterpart funds, which will go into procurement of some of the antiretroviral medicines, then 100% of test kits, reagents, and other lab supplies, and then 100% of condoms. These have always been a challenge. So recently, government agreed to have Ministry of Health, had a swapping arrangement for the Global Fund to rather use its money to give us the quantities of antiretrovirals we need for the period, and then government will rather spend its money in procuring test kits and condoms. And the donors agreed to do that. On our part, from 2021 to 2023, the counterpart fund was supposed to be almost 18 million. Throughout the period, we've been able to pay less than 5 million.
Less than 5 million?
Less than 5 million.
Out of the 18 million?
Yes. So what it means is that the principle of the Global Fund is that if you are not able to pay the counterpart funds, then the money will be deducted from their contribution.
Wow.
So the challenge we have presently is that if we are not able to clear the almost 13 million left to be paid, then we would have the undesirable consequence of losing that amount from the new grant we are going to receive from the Global Fund.
So, Doc, this is clearly a lack of commitment from our side. Yes, the donors are committed, but from the state Ghana, you don't see similar commitment, do you?
I think we have to prioritize HIV because it is in the mindset of many people that HIV has a lot of donor funds. But that is not true. HIV doesn't have a lot of donor funds. We spend about $132 million a year on the HIV program itself. Now, this amount is supposed to be money for everything in HIV. What we have currently, as I said, is about 33%, which translates into, let's say, 44 million. So there is a funding gap of 89 million every year, and that should come from domestic sources. Now, for many countries, it's not just government alone paying, let's say, the 60% I referred to, or the 89 million we expect to be paid. there are ways of contributing. So government contributes, private sector contributes, individuals contribute. So individuals in Uganda, for example, all people who are employed in the formal sector, if someone receives, let's say, 2,500 cedis and 20 pesos, the pesos are moved into the ACE fund. They call it ACE Trust Fund. Some countries too, the individuals contribute some amount, like maybe 10 cedis a month or 20 cedis a month. And I have already mentioned the the Zimbabwe. So there are various funding streams.
Yeah.
And the private sector contributes. So last 2 years, for example, Dangote led the private sector in Nigeria to contribute almost $70 million to support the ACE program. And the money was dedicated to elimination of mother-to-child transmission. Right. And so there are similar ways that we can look at this. Government cannot do it alone because we all know the challenges we are facing as a country. Yeah. We have a very limited fiscal space, and the government's ability to, handle all the issues is not possible. Yeah. And that is why the Commission is embarking on, aggressive resource mobilization. And we are grateful to Multimedia for supporting us. And so we thank the management and staff of Multimedia Group for this support. We deeply appreciate it. But as I said, all Ghanaians should come on board. Corporate Ghana should come on board. Government should come on board, so that we can address the HIV problem. I must say, maybe before you ask the question, I must say that Ghana has made significant progress in the HIV program. In spite of all the challenges we are having, we are making significant progress. But that progress is very, very, in my view, I would say it's fragile. It's fragile because if the people do not get the medicines to take, what it means is that viral load will go up. They will infect more people. Mm-hmm. They themselves will develop AIDS and die. More people become infected, and then we will have the situation out of hands. And we don't know what the monies we are getting today from donors is not assured that beyond 2030, when the global community has agreed that we should, have end AIDS, we should end AIDS by 2030. Beyond 2030, we don't know how funding situation is going to be, and we should be aware of the current global situation in terms of, I don't want to go into that, but what I want to say is that donors are now asking countries to develop their transition and sustainability plans for the HIV program. And when you look at the donor transition plans, strategies that they have, it is quite clear that their support will come to an end at some point. And as a people, as a country, we have to take the responsibility, our own destiny into our own hands. The people living with HIV are Ghanaians. They are our family members, our friends, our brothers and sisters, our children, and we should find a way of making sure that they get the medicines and we are in a position to bring new infections to the barest minimum.
Well, if you just joined us, we're talking to Dr. Kyeremeh Atuahene. He's the Director General of the Ghana AIDS Commission. He's been giving us the big picture of the funding gap, when it comes to caring for those with HIV and AIDS in Ghana. And the gap is big. It needs all of us to help fill it. And he's telling us what is required. Just before you leave us, maybe we can humanize this a little bit after giving us the big picture. Perhaps you can tell us about some of the stories, the individuals behind this, because I'm sure as a commission, you get people on the phone daily, coming to you daily, complaining about their situation when there is a lack of, drugs for their therapy, when there is a lack of care, just because of the funding situation. So do you have some of the personal stories that you can share with us?
Yeah, quite a lot. But let me start with, new infections. You have a number of young people calling, crying, or weeping, saying, I don't know how I got it. Can you help me, please? And the numbers from the health facilities that do the testing shows that more and more young people are getting infected. And as we all know, HIV affects the most economically active population in every country. And so it is in Ghana. And so our economy and our development is dependent on the most economically active population. And if we are going to lose them to HIV, then we should imagine what the consequences might be. And we've been there before. At the beginning of the AIDS epidemic, that is what happened. And so we cannot, reverse the gains that we have made. The persons living with HIV, the moment they hear that there is shortage of drugs, it's as if their lives have come to an end, because it puts fear in them, and because they don't know what is going to happen. It puts fear in them, and they think that their life is at stake. And so that is why I feel that this situation should not arise again. There are many of them who would do anything to survive. So when this situation occurred, you heard that some of them were asking for the permission to even take the expired drugs, because that is how it is, that they know that without it, their life is at serious risk. And so they will take any desperate measures, to stay alive. And the stories can be very horrifying. And I do not want to go into details. But what I want to say is that this is our country. Every citizen in Ghana deserves the best. All that we are saying is not to indicate that government is not doing anything at all. No. The records show that over the last 6-7 years, government contribution to HIV is been increasing. In fact, between 2019 and 2020, government contribution was in 2019 around $22 million. 2020, it went up to 28 million. Then 2021, it went up to 31, almost 32 million. Now, I need to indicate that government contribution goes into areas that are non-program areas, like infrastructure, human resource, logistics for the work. That is where government money goes. And so, although it has impact on the program, but the actual investment in the program is not coming from government. So we need money for prevention, we need money for treatment and management, we need money for what we call social justice, reduction, stigma reduction. We need money for program enablers like monitoring and evaluation, coordination and management of the response, and all that. So these are the areas we are not finding the money. And those are the core areas that we need to make the investment in order to see the impact that we should have in the HIV program.
So, I mean, for those listening who want to somehow lend their support, how do they get in touch with the Ghana AIDS Commission?
Yes, they can call our number, but before I give out the number, we have the USSD code, which is star 9898 hash. You follow the prompt, star 9898 hash. You follow the prompt, and you can do it only on Vodafone and MTN. Okay. We are yet to rope in Airtel Tigo. So when you dial star 9898 hash, then you follow the prompts and do the donation. Interestingly, a number of people have been on the platform attempting to donate, but they do not actually donate. They end up truncating the process. But a few have done it, and we are very grateful to them. At least we have donation of averaging, let's say, 20 Ghana cedis from some individuals.
We absolutely need more than that.
Yes, we need more than that. And the commission itself, in fact, my staff did something that really impressed me. They had a meeting and said that charity begins at home. So if we are asking people to donate, then we should start it. So junior staff should pay 20 cedis a month. Managers should pay 50. Directors should pay 100. DG should pay 150 a month. I was so impressed. I said, oh, yes, then management should approve it. Yeah. And it has been approved. So apart from the USSD code, you can also donate to the Ghana AIDS Fund through this Bank of Ghana account, which is account number 101-863-163233. 101-863-161-3233.
Right.
If you want to, those outside who may want to contribute, if it is in euros, the account number is 118-863-152-7046. If it is in dollars, it's 102-863-161-3026. I take that again. 102-863-161-3026. And if it is in pounds, you can use the account number 103-863-161-3013. Thank you.
Thank you too, Dr. Kyeremeh Atuahene. He's the Director General of the Ghana AIDS Commission. We're so glad that you made the time to speak to us this morning. We wish you the very best with your endeavors.